Hello, good people of Starbow. It's CFS here, your favorite game developer or something. I wanted to do an explanation video about the patch notes for patch 114 instead of doing the explanation text, because a lot of times we put in changes that are just like a sentence, and then we see a lot of people just never even like understanding or bothering to use the implication. Like, we changed sentinels, no one used them. We changed the eruptors, no one used them. We changed the mercs, no one uses them. And from my experience, a lot of time when people finally start to use them, they're like, "Oh, this thing's OP." Like, and then it's kind of hard to say because we haven't gotten any feedback in a long time. So like, oh, well, no one's said anything about that. Well, no one's been using it. So this is another way to just showcase what's happening. So let me just show you starting off. Oh yeah, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about some Starbow design principles that we're going to be focusing on in the future. But for now, let's just focus on the changes. I'll talk about that at the end of the video. So it says that Zerglings and later on Protos that Zealot's range swap has changed. Now the range swap is the distance that an attack that has started is the distance. Okay, let's put this in hold position. Okay, let me try and explain this. So we have a probe right here. Okay, it's gonna be right here. Okay, so this thing is really close to being in range with the Zergling, right? Let's say the Zergling got in range, and then the probe moved away as the Zergling got in range. Now the Zergling would start its attack, but if the probe got out of a certain range before the attack actually happened, the attack would be cancelled if that certain range it gets out of is it's out of its range slot. So the range slot on Zerglings and Zealots by default is pretty long, which means that basically any fast unit just flying by the Zergling is going to take a hit from the Zergling. We actually changed that. But on the other hand, the Zergling already has a range. I know it says melee here, but melee in StarCraft 2 Editor is any range between 0 and 1. So I think Zerglings have 0.5, maybe it's even more if I remember correctly, which means that you can actually move closer to, you can get, if you A-move something, it's going to start attacking from 0.5 away, but if you move there and then attack, you're going to get closer. This is useful for busting down walls, for example, because then you're going to fit more Zerglings in. And this is also useful because we wanted to make it easier for to scout versus melee units. So if we have this probe just moving around, we're going to try and make... oh, crap, there's a siege tank up there. So, okay, let's make a new one. Oh, that failed. I'm going to have a probe. I'm going to have one for player 2. There we go. Oh. Probe. Wow. Okay, there we go. It's back. Cool. Okay, so if we're gonna have this side guy running around in circles, some of this turn's gonna be too sharp, but whatever. Let's send the Zergling attacking this. So what you're gonna notice is Zergling got hit there because he turned really sharply. But if we just keep this sucker moving, this Zergling just never hits. Look at that. It tries to attack. The attack gets cancelled. Actually, if we do this, hang on. No, if we do this. Let me just show you this in slow motion. I know I'm spending way too much. No, Zergling, get away from there. Come on. There we go. I'm going to show you this in slow motion because it's so cool to do slow motion in the editor. Okay, this is a huge tangent. I was not supposed to do this at all, but I just wanted to show you guys. So Probe gets like really close and he turns around and he attacks, but look at that, the attack animation doesn't actually do any damage. Like, he starts to attack. It's really close because it's faster. Oh no! And then he got out of the leash range. I mean the range slot. Okay, so that's how range slot works. If you want to counter this, you just move the Zergling closer. So let's just send this Probe away. Send the Zergling after. Instead of A-moving the Probe, it's a Probe now. Oh, hang on. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough room here. I'm not. Okay, let's turn around. Okay, go back. Let's just go over here. Okay. If you want to kill this probe, which is going to be really tricky no matter what, if you want to get hit off, you want to have more than one Zergling, first of all. If you want to actually get hit off, you need to get like right there, way in his face like that, and then attack. So it's going to be hard killing those workers now. And it's the same for Zealots. Okay, so that's the range swap. And the reason we did it for Zealots is versus Hydralisk. If you have speed Zealots versus speed Hydras moving away are not going to take so much damage. Sometimes those animation attacks will be cancelled, so that means that the Zealots also want to get in the face before attacking, and I think the Zealot range is even longer than 0.5, so you can really get in the face before attacking. Alright, let's look at the Eruptor range. Eruptors have faster attack speed and their splash damage is a little bit bigger. Let me just show you an extreme example where you have one Corsair versus one Eruptor, and if you just barely get in range and then turn around, nope, even closer, come on, shoot, there we go. You see that he didn't take much damage at all. Okay, that was such barely in range, I haven't even tested that close, I think. Okay, there we go. And he would actually take even less damage than before. This was actually an effort to try and fix this, and when I'm looking at this right now, it kind of failed. Okay, that's a little bit more damage. So right now, Eruptor's looking pretty bad, but if you actually commit to moving in here, if you go a little bit too close, it's going to be pretty bad for these Corsairs. They're actually going to try and kill some of the Overlords. And they got to keep moving. Look at that. Look how much damage they're taking. So yeah. And the Eruptors also have a speed upgrade. Bam. Which makes it easier for them to move around and chase things. There we go. Look at them. Look at them little things go. Look at the speed. It's 2.8 now. So yeah. Okay. That's the Eruptors. Mutalisks. They now... it says that Mutalisk Overlord trait works now. It did right before the patch, but because we fixed a lot of the Mutalisk behavior in the patch, because it was a bug fix as well, it isn't as noticeable anymore, mostly because they just clump up better by themselves now. This is quite hard to explain, but basically what happened is that Blizzard finally fixed the separation bug of Mutalisks, which messed up our own behavior we have there to try and clean up that bug. Let's look at, okay, let's look at this formation right now. It's pretty tight, but if we include an Overlord, it's going to be even tighter, I think. It's very similar now. Yeah, this is fairly unnoticeable. No, there we go. Now that's tighter. That's tighter, but it was much more noticeable before this fix. Because right now we're actually just working with the values in the editor instead of adding some crazy behaviors to fix things, because Blizzard have actually fixed things. So this is going to make things a little bit more tricky for us. Or not tricky, it's going to make things easier, but we're going to have to figure out the values that we actually need to get things working. I see these Mutalisks may clump up a little bit too much, so we may need to do a little bit more work on the Mutalisks. Alright, moving on to Rift. That's the last thing on the patch notes I want to comment. The rest is like Vikings armored, because, well, yeah. Well, I can actually comment on Vikings. Vikings is a freaking good unit. Like, it's a really good unit. It's a better Valkyrie because it's easier to micro that can land. And the Valkyrie was a decent unit in Bird War, and we just buffed it a ton. And he wasn't even armored. And making the Viking armored is going to make it worse versus Spine Crawlers and Hydralisks, which are basically the two units usually used to defend versus mech, versus at least early Vikings. Like, what happens is that when you play versus mech, you make Mutalisks. He makes Vikings to kill Mutalisks, usually. And if the Mutalisks die, he just send in the Vikings and land, and what you got to defend with is Hydras and Spines. And they don't do that well versus the land Vikings, and there's no way you could land those in Bird War. So, and I think they even were armored in Bird War, so it's basically just bringing in an obvious change. Alright, rest of the stuff is... The last thing on the list is Rift. Rift was really good the way it was. We just tried to make it even better. So instead of rifting units directly, it creates a portal, and if the units stand in the portal, after 5 seconds, they get sent home, like that. Let me just speed up the game a little bit. And this has a couple of advantages compared to the old way of doing things. One of the things is that these units can actually fight while they were staying in the portal. They weren't frozen. Another thing is they can actually move out of the portal and not get rifted, so you don't have to commit to being rifted. On the other hand, the opponent, if he wanted to, could flood the portal with his own units and maybe prevent some of the zealots from being transported away. And you can also fake out your opponent by setting up like a rift and like, oh, he's gonna retreat, and then he doesn't. So we thought it was slightly better. Alright, that's it for the patch notes. Let's talk about the future slightly. One thing we... well, actually, let me start with the story. So there's a Korean Starbow player that I talked to recently, and he tried to play Starbow with a couple of his Korean friends, which is really awesome because we want Korean gamers because they have such a good background in Bird War. It makes them for excellent Starbow gamers. And they tried Starbow, they liked it, but ultimately the question was always this: why would I play Starbow when I can't play Bird War? And right now, in current Starbow, that's a question that's really tough to answer, because Starbow is very similar to Bird War. Now, we've had a reason for this. We wanted to build Starbow off of a Bird War balanced base. And that has been the goal for the couple of 2 or 3 years or so. It hasn't always been the goal of Starbow, but it's been the goal for a long time. And what's happened is we always thought we had a brewor base, and then we find something different from brewor from Starbow that is significant, like the larva spawn timing, for example, and then we have to put that in, and then we find the mineral gas ratio off, so we put that in. We've actually been doing a lot of work just to get the brewor base done. I think we're pretty close now. Of course, we have some new units, some macro mechanics and stuff, but overall, the stuff that is supposed to be from brewor seems to be working like they did in brewor, at least somewhat decently. So I think the time has come to see how can we actually differentiate this game from brewor. Now that we have the brewor basis balance, what can we do to this game to make it not brewor? And it's not just about making it not brewor. It's also to consider the fact that macro in general in Starbow is much easier than was in brewor. All the mechanics is much easier. Army movement is a ton easier. And so that means that there's a lot more time for the players to focus on their gameplay instead of shifting screens, 10 times a second and clicking all over the place. And we can use that to our advantage by adding little elements into the game that encourages more arm movement, encourages the players to do more things. And we want those more things that they do to be strategical. We don't want them to be just a spam fest. If we wanted to do that, we could just remove the worker rally, and then they would have to send each worker in like they had to do in brewor. That's not the goal of Starbow. So we're looking into tweaking the mechanics that are on the macro buildings, like we did now with Rift. That was one of the things we did. We have Rift, Corner Boost, Safeguard. Oh, and Energized Pylons, I forgot to mention, is in the cast note, is auto cast now, so it's nice to use. That's a digression though. But these abilities here, these mechanics we have the Queen. Well, we don't have the Queen right here. Oh, I don't have a spawning pool, and then the orbital. These abilities, we may. Why did it show up when I just? That's really weird. I think there's a bug. Anyway, we may tweak these abilities. We're not going to remove macro mechanics. We talked about it in the development team. We're not removing them, but we may tweak both the macro mechanics and these other mechanics to encourage more strategy, decision making, and also just being more active with your units in general throughout the whole game. That's what we're discussing a lot lately. We've been coming up with a lot of crazy ideas. We've been coming up with a lot of more conservative ideas, and we may try a whole lot of crazy stuff on the test map because we're kind of like at a place where, okay, what can we get in to make it more interesting? And at this point, we're not afraid to mess with the brewor balance, actually. We don't want to ruin it, but we have the brewor basis. We know that if we add this ability to turn, we may need to add something to Protoss, and then we may need to add something to Zerg. That's okay, because it doesn't have to be brewor. Alright, I think that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.